Welcome back, focused learners. Let's just dive right into it today. In this explainer, we're unpacking a really fascinating dynamic that almost everyone runs into at some point, but honestly, very few people truly understand. We're talking about the inevitable social friction, the actual real-world price that comes when you undergo significant personal growth and try to completely redefine your way of life. Have you ever tried to make a huge positive change in your life only to find that the people closest to you are the ones pushing back the absolutely hardest? It's confusing, right? It's often really painful. But as we're going to see today, it's actually an entirely predictable process. Expect chaos when you are creative and innovative. Seriously, when you decide to step outside the normal thinking of the majority around you, chaos isn't just some vague possibility, it is practically guaranteed. When you choose an innovative path, you're inherently disrupting the status quo. And the truly fascinating part here is that the source text emphasizes this isn't just about strangers or your coworkers reacting to you. No, this disruption hits your closest inner circle. So let's look at part one, the chaos of creativity. During this initial phase, there's often this massive, total disconnect between you and your loved ones. On one side, you've got you, the innovator. You're trying to redefine how you live. You're doing it for your own good, and objectively speaking, everything about this new direction looks incredibly healthy. But then, on the flip side, we have the tribe, your close circle. When they see you heading down this totally different path, a path they don't associate you with, they get uncomfortable, they get scared. Under these circumstances, the text points out a pretty harsh reality. Even the most loving, supportive people in your life will suddenly turn against you and act in really weird ways just to keep you exactly as the person they've always known. Your healthy intentions as the innovator simply do not match the scared reactions of the tribe. Which brings us to the second piece of the puzzle, the tribal mentality trap. To really wrap our heads around why this massive disconnect happens, we have to look at evolutionary tribal mentality. Because of this deeply ingrained primal social dynamic, it is incredibly difficult, especially for the people closest to us, to just accept the loss of the original personality they've known their whole lives. You see, this behavior isn't necessarily a malicious, coordinated attack against your new habits. Instead, it's a completely predictable primal urge to maintain the group dynamic. They are literally wired to resist losing the you that they have always known. And understanding this evolutionary trap is a real game changer. It helps us reframe their resistance from something entirely hateful into something fundamentally biological.
But hey, just because it's an evolutionary instinct doesn't mean it doesn't sting, right? This deeply ingrained tribal mentality leads loved ones into what the source calls unconscious sabotage. Because they can't easily accept the loss of your old self, they unconsciously sabotage your new efforts. And how exactly do they pull this off? Well, the text specifically notes that they do this mainly by saying things that hurt us emotionally. It's essentially a defense mechanism. It's a completely unconscious attempt to drag you back down to the familiar baseline by taking a swing at your emotions.
Let's break this down further in part 3, the anatomy of unconscious sabotage. Let's methodically walk through these drivers. Why do they push back so hard? Well, first off, they might just genuinely like your old personality, or they're completely habituated to it, even if it was inconvenient for you. Second, there's this deep, deep fear that they might lose you emotionally as you start growing apart. Third, your change might signal that they need to embrace changes themselves, which, let's face it, they just aren't ready to do. Fourth, and this is a massive one, your innovation might actually shine a spotlight on their own weaknesses and their own lack of commitment to pursue what they want in life. Fifth, because of that spotlight, they might feel inferior, so they try to suppress you rather than raising their own bar. And finally, they might just be totally overwhelmed by the changes you're going through or flat out scared of the unfamiliar path you're taking. When you look at this whole list, it's like a giant puzzle coming together. You can clearly reframe their perceived malice into what it actually is: mere fear, deep-seated habit, and feelings of inadequacy. So, how do we actually get through this? That brings us to part 4, surviving the resistance. The short answer? Expect a long phase of ridicule and revolt from your inner circle. The source text is completely uncompromising here. It notes that no matter what specific reason your tribe comes up with, this backlash is the inevitable result. So I want to speak directly to you for a second. You need to be prepared to get hurt again and again. This isn't just some weekend dispute over dinner. It is a long, drawn-out phase. You're going to need a lot of firm empathy for yourself as you navigate this. Expecting the revolt is literally the very first step to surviving it, so you aren't completely blindsided when your own loved ones push back against your healthy changes. Which brings us to the actual path to victory. I like to call this the crucible of grit. Step 1, as we just talked about, is facing that ridicule and revolt head-on. Step 2 is where your true power lies. The text states that you need the grit and the courage to battle it out in private for a long, long time. You absolutely cannot rely on their applause during this phase. You have to rely entirely on your own internal grit. And you do this private battling for one very specific reason, which is, step 3, to eventually reach momentum and gain their support. You just endure the private battle until your new reality becomes so overwhelmingly undeniable that the social friction finally breaks. You must battle it out in private until you reach a momentum for everything around you to believe you and join your forces. This is the tipping point. This is the absolute crescendo of the entire transformational process. If you persevere through the chaos, through all that unconscious sabotage, and through the ridicule, you will eventually hit a critical mass. The exact same people who let their evolutionary tribal mentality scare them into fighting you, well, they'll see your momentum. Your sheer perseverance will compel your tribe to finally believe in you and actively support your new path. The friction literally transforms into fuel. So that brings us to the ultimate question we all have to answer. Will you surrender to the tribe, or will you battle in private until they join your forces? Understanding the true price of personal transformation means accepting that the chaos and the emotional hurt from your close quarters are just part of the process. It is a sure sign that you are truly innovating. The challenge is entirely in your hands now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Endure the ordeal, rely on your grit, and I'll see you on the next one.